Alright, so we started out with the last video and we said we're trying to determine if this is safe or not. And then we're talking about the copper and then we come back. Okay. And action. Hola amigos. I'm here today to help you understand whether or not PEX tubing is safe for your drinking water. Alright, so I'm going to start by showing you the alternative. This is the tried and true method of drinking water storage and transmission for thousands and thousands of years by the ancient Hindus, the ancient Egyptians, and this is copper. And one of the really cool things I want you to notice about this copper is one of the new methodologies of connecting the copper pieces to one another has to do with a crimping technology that now allows you to eliminate the need for bringing any alternative metals to do any sort of soldering or welding of the copper. And that actually just kind of leaves it just one single monolithic material. And it's super cool. And I think it's just very fascinating, just that one technology in itself. But back to the point at hand is this is a solution that we know works well. Now, the question at hand is whether or not this solution works well. Why did we even get into changing solutions first and foremost? Well, about 20 or 30 years ago, we got into using a plastic piping product called Kitec. That just had to do with the cost skyrocketing on copper and trying to make homes in the United States of America much more affordable to build. I'm sure this had to do with homes all over the world, but I can only speak to the United States of America for this video. So the Kitec was created, which is very similar to PEX, and Kitec was put in many, many homes, including production-built homes that I built for another company over 20 years ago, and they would put Kitec in the foundations with all the joints in all these production homes. And a few years into the Kitec experiment, the connections and joints that were used were shown to fail regularly, and so many, many, many homes throughout the United States of America had leaks in the foundations that nobody could really get to because they were in the concrete. And so Kitec was I wasn't going to say the victim, but basically there was a class action lawsuit against Kitec, and Kitec became bankrupt and they became non-existent, and then popped up PEX, right? And so PEX was the new plastic piping solution. So that's what we use now. This is probably used in, like I'd say, 99% of the homes and probably commercial projects in the United States of America nowadays when doing plumbing. And copper has really become a thing of the past, just used very incrementally, if I'm saying that properly, in projects, right? Just kind of here and there for certain applications, but definitely not for the vast majority of the production of the plumbing pipe, excuse me, of the plumbing piping systems. So the reason why we are actually questioning the safety profile of the PEX tubing has to do with a study that came out in 2024. And this one actually says 2021, but when I read it previously, it said 2024. So it just talks about the chemicals inside of the PEX tubing, and it's actually a coating within the PEX tubing that has volatile organic compounds in it. So it's not actually the PEX itself, it's a coating inside that they put. And I'm not sure actually why they put it. I don't know if it makes it easier to like get water through and slide and protect it or what, but it's a coating they put in. And so they studied this extensively for years and looked at the effects of the lifespan of PEX that we know of today and really focused in on the first 5 years, but they showed the PEX over like a 15-year period. And that what they came to the conclusion of was that the PEX seems to leach out volatile organic compounds at a much higher level during the first 5 years than the latter lifespan of the PEX. And so the reason why that is going on is because when the water comes into your house, right, it comes in from the main water line. And that main water line is coming from a sewage treatment plant or something to that effect. And it's got stuff inside it. You know, it's got chemicals. There's small traces of drugs, of birth control. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff is in that water to a very small degree. Now, one of the things that is very common in that water and prevalent is going to be chlorine. And so that chlorine actually becomes aggressive and it attacks the inside of that PEX tubing and it breaks down that coating inside the middle of the PEX tubing. and then it leaches into your water, right? And so you end up drinking it, and you get a certain amount of parts per million of these volatile organic compounds in your water. Now, for us, we have gone to the lengths of doing all this high-level filtration, right? On the other side of this wall, we have an exterior storage closet that has a reverse osmosis system. It has a chiller, and then it leads to this cool bottle filler, which our clients are just going to be using to put their cups in and fill up their drinking water. And that's how they're going to typically drink day to day. We also have, on the other side of this wall, a whole house carbon filter that filters all of the water that comes into the house. And that one's going to work for situations like the bottle filler. And excuse me, that was the bottle filler over there. For the pot filler, right? So take a look at this rendering right here. You can see the pot filler that is going to be forthcoming on this wall. And that one doesn't pass through the reverse osmosis. So you end up with this quandary of what do you do with the piping post-filtration when it still has to go to another fixture prior to being utilized, especially for drinking water or for cooking water, right? This also applies to showers and stuff like that as well. What do you use? Do you utilize the PEX tubing, or do you utilize the tried and true copper piping, right? And so what I'm here to kind of explain to you today is just the data behind the decisions of each one, and explain to you that the more tried and true solution that is going to be the best practice is going to be to use the copper, right? It is a wonderful, very known solution for transmitting the water, and really has these incredible antimicrobial properties, and it's going to be great. The other option is to use the PEX, and a lot of people do that. And a lot of the reason why maybe a water filtration company would say use PEX is because they will say that if you actually filter the water enough and remove enough minerals from it and strip it down, it will become what they call hungry. And then that hungry water will potentially attack the inside of this copper tubing and leach the minerals and potentially create pinholes within it. One of the big concerns they have is the soldered welds that are usually like out of a brass or an alternative material, that those will break down. Now, we don't have this issue here because we have all these crimped connections, so that's not a problem. But theoretically, you could leach minerals out of this copper and cause pinholes over many, many, many years, or you could possibly just leach a little bit too much of the minerals within the copper, and it could ultimately create some sort of slow poisoning of your body due to like an overdose of copper, right? At smaller amounts, copper is super good for you. I take a copper supplement, but there are limits to everything that you should intake. So that's kind of what you may hear. Now, on the flip side, the same thing can actually be said for the hungry water inside of the PEX tubing and the sealant within the PEX, and whether or not that is actually safe. So I will say that the study that I just talked about, that is a governmental study and is a peer-reviewed study, that one shows that the aggressive water, be it chlorinated or stripped down of minerals and highly filtered and hungry, that both of those are actually going to increase significantly the parts per million of the VOCs within the piping of the PEX that will ultimately go downstream to your water as you drink out of the pot filler or out of the water chiller unit, or you go take a shower and you get all the vapor from that getting into the air, and it will increase those parts per million significantly, and especially during the first 5 years. After that, it kind of deteriorates and it just gets to be the PEX, and actually those VOCs are now much more minimalized. And I will say, too, we're not really discussing microplastics here. That's not anything that's discussed in any of these studies, so that's not part of the risk profile that I'm discussing today, and not a high risk that I know of as of right now. So we're discussing VOCs. It is a lot easier for your body to excrete VOCs than it is microplastics. So we're talking about something that hopefully is a little bit safer in nature, though many people don't want to have in excess of VOCs in their body regardless. So the study says that, yes, that happens, that occurs, and the increase is significant during the first 5 years. But what I do want to mention is that the threshold that is associated with the known safety standards of the amount of VOCs that are coming off of this PEX tubing, be it the first 5 years with hungry aggressive water, or be it post 5 years with the hungry aggressive water, are still well below the known safety standards. I'd say they're about 1/10 of the threshold of the known safety standards based on all the research I've looked at. So I would suggest that you look into who sets those safety standards and if those are truly acceptable. And I will say the increase is significant from the non-hungry, non-aggressive water versus the hungry aggressive water, with how much VOCs comes off of this PEX tubing and into your body and all of the risk associated with it. So if you want to be the healthiest, best, you are not going to put hungry, aggressive water inside of PEX tubing and drinking out of it, right? You're just not, because you care about that sort of thing. But you may want to also not put hungry, aggressive water inside of copper either, because that just doesn't seem like the smartest thing either, due to some of the other stuff I discussed. So it's probably smarter than putting it inside of the PEX tubing. What you actually want to do, guys, is a very great solution. You want to remineralize your water after you remove the chlorine and all the nasty stuff via high-end, high-level filtration. And I say high-end, it does not have to necessarily be high-end. You just got to filter the water real good, however you can do that. High-end, low-end, just filter it real good, remove all the nasty chemicals, and then turn it into hungry water. And then after you turn it into hungry water, then you're going to remineralize it using a remineralization cartridge. Now, there's a wide variety of those cartridges, but those will help pH balance the water and bring it out of an acidic mode to a more neutral, slightly more basic pH balance. And then we're also going to now have minerals within the water, so it is not wanting to strip and grab and leach the coating from the inside of the PEX, or anything from that matter from this beautiful antimicrobial copper. So that will be pretty much a solution to both situations, the copper or the PEX. But if you want to do the absolute best, in my professional opinion, post filtration, you're going to go with the copper to everywhere where it counts. And where it counts are the places you're going to be engaging with that water on a very personal level, whether it be drinking with it, cooking with it, or bathing with it. I hope that helps. Adios, amigos.